Catch over your shoulder. I used to love
At
that
66, I have learned that football remembers a man differently than the record books do. The books keep the rings, the yards, and the Sundays when everything went right. My memory kept something else. It kept the faces waiting across the line and the strange silence that comes when a running back realizes the opening he expected is already gone. If you ask me which defenders were the hardest, I cannot give you an easy answer. I can give you 5 names. 4 of them wore the same colors and moved like different parts of one machine. The 5th belongs to a January memory that followed me long after the stadium emptied. They did more than stop me. One took away the middle. Another stole the edge. One made preparation feel like survival. One became the symbol of a season slipping away. And one taught me that every yard has a price. So I will start with the quietest of them, the man who rarely needed noise to make the field feel smaller. I was 27 years old when the New Orleans Saints came to Candlestick Park in November of 1987. By then, I had played enough football to believe I understood what an inside linebacker was supposed to look like. Most of them gave you something before the snap: a lean, a restless foot, a glance toward the gap they intended to close. Vaughan Johnson gave me almost nothing. That afternoon, I carried the ball 17 times for 65 yards. We lost 26-24. Those numbers seem ordinary now, but the game never felt ordinary from the backfield. Johnson later remembered making 28 tackles against us that day. 28. When one man appears around the ball that often, you stop thinking of him as a defender. He becomes part of the field. Our offense depended on timing. Joe Montana had to see the defense clearly. The line had to create an opening for a moment. I had to recognize it before it disappeared. Johnson attacked that moment. He did not always charge forward as soon as the ball moved. He stayed square, watched the blocking develop, and waited until I had committed my shoulders. Then the opening would narrow. That was his gift. Patience disguised as force. I ran with high knees because I believed movement could carry me through trouble. Against Johnson, movement was not enough. If I hurried, he was waiting. If I hesitated, the rest of the Saints' defense arrived. How do you run through a man who refuses to show you where he is going? You do not overpower that problem. You learn to read it. People remember the Saints linebackers as the Dome Patrol, 4 names spoken together. I understand why. Years later, when I was asked about the defenders I hated facing most, I named that entire group. I said they had my number because every yard or inch against them had to be earned. Vaughan was the quiet center of that memory. Rickey Jackson brought the reputation. Pat Swilling brought speed. Sam Mills brought instinct. Vaughan brought certainty. He made the middle feel occupied before the play had even begun. What he corrected in me was impatience. A running back wants daylight immediately. Vaughan taught me that sometimes the first opening is an invitation, not an answer. I had to slow my eyes while keeping my feet alive. I had to trust the design, then adjust when the design failed. I never enjoyed seeing him across the line. Respect does not always begin with admiration. Sometimes it begins with the uncomfortable knowledge that a man has understood your intention before you have completed it. And once I learned to search for Johnson inside, another problem was already waiting near the edge. His name was Pat Swilling. Pat Swilling was different. Vaughan Johnson made the middle field crowded. Pat made the outside field temporary. It was September 4th, 1988, opening day, inside the Louisiana Superdome. I was 28, entering what would become the finest rushing season of my career. I felt prepared. My legs were fresh. Our offense knew what it wanted to do. Then the ball was snapped and Pat began changing the amount of time we had to do it. We won that afternoon, 34-33. I finished with 67 rushing yards and caught 5 passes for another 43. On paper, that looks productive. It was, but production can hide discomfort. Every time I released from the backfield, I had to know where Pat was. Every time we tried to reach the corner, I could feel how quickly the edge was shrinking. A running back usually thinks in space. Pat forced me to think in seconds. His first steps were so direct that the offense had to respond before the play had fully revealed itself. He could rush from the outside, pursue from behind, or make the quarterback hurry his decision. For me, the problem was uncertainty. Was I carrying the ball, protecting Joe, slipping into the flat, whatever my assignment was? Swilling had a way of making it feel late. That was the difference between him and Vaughan. Vaughan waited for commitment. Pat tried to create it. He wanted the offense to choose too early because an early decision is often an honest one. Once he saw where the play was going, his speed took care of the rest. What do you do against a defender who makes patience feel dangerous? You prepare before the ball moves. I learned to study his alignment, the angle of his shoulders, and the distance between him and the line. I could not wait until he was moving. By then, the question had already been answered. Years later, people saw the awards and the reputation Pat earned. I remembered something simpler. I remembered how much attention one man could pull toward the edge of a formation. That attention changed protections. It changed routes. It changed the confidence of a running back who normally believed he could escape into open grass. Pat corrected another weakness in me. Vaughan had taught me to slow my eyes. Pat taught me to speed up my preparation. Those lessons sound opposite, but football is built from contradictions. See calmly, decide early, run without hesitation. I respected Pat because he never allowed the play to remain comfortable. Even when he did not finish it, his presence could push it somewhere. It was never meant to go. Still, when I think about those Saints defenses, Pat was only one side of the pressure. Across that same front stood the man who gave the entire rivalry its face. Before the snap, I searched for Swilling, but I always knew where Rickey Jackson was. That sounds simple, but it was not. Pat Swilling made you search for a dress movement. Rickey made you account for a presence. Before Joe finished the call in the huddle, before I settled behind him, part of my mind had already gone to the outside edge of the Saints defense. One game returns to me more clearly than the others. October 25th, 1987, inside the Louisiana Superdome. I was 27. We won 24-22, but nothing about the afternoon felt secure. I carried the ball 15 times for 55 yards and caught 5 passes for another 50. My longest run was 9 yards. That number explains Rickey better than a speech could. There was production, but there was no escape. Rickey played outside linebacker as if the boundary belonged to him. He could pressure the quarterback, hold his position against the run, then turn and follow a play that appeared to be moving away. His strength was obvious. What troubled me was his persistence. Some defenders disappeared when the ball went to the other side. Rickey remained part of the play. Swilling stole time. Rickey stole choices. If I cut outside, he could close the edge. If I stayed inside, Vaughan Johnson and Sam Mills were waiting. If I released for a short pass, the pursuit continued. Where was a running back supposed to find peace against that? The answer was nowhere. You accepted the pressure, protected the football, and took whatever the defense allowed. Years later, Rickey said San Francisco had been the Saints' biggest rival, the team they used to measure themselves. Hearing that made those Sundays easier to understand. We entered those games carrying championships and expectations. New Orleans entered them trying to prove that the old order could be challenged. Rickey was not simply chasing me. He was chasing what our uniform represented. That changed the way I remembered him. When you are young, you can mistake resistance for disrespect. You think the man across from you is trying to take something personal away. Age teaches you a quieter truth. He is protecting his own standard. He is answering to his own teammates, his own city, and the years when nobody believed in them. By the time Rickey finally wore a San Francisco uniform in 1994, I'd already left the league. He earned a championship there. I found something fitting in that. The man who had spent so many seasons measuring himself against the 49ers eventually became part of their history. Rickey corrected the arrogance that success can create. He reminded me that the team chasing you may be carrying a hunger your trophies cannot understand. But the next man belonged to a different kind of memory. Rickey Jackson made an entire rivalry feel personal. Lawrence Taylor made one January moment feel permanent. Some games end when the clock reaches 0. Others keep one small piece of themselves and send it home with you. January 20th, 1991 was that kind of day. I was 30 years old. We were the 2-time defending champions playing the New York Giants at Candlestick Park for another trip to the Super Bowl. Late in the fourth quarter, we led 13-12. The situation was simple. Keep the ball. Find one more first down. Let the clock finish the work. I took the handoff from Steve Young and ran inside. Eric Howard reached me and forced the ball loose. That detail matters. Lawrence Taylor did not cause the fumble. Howard did. But the ball rose into Taylor's hands. And with 2 minutes and 36 seconds remaining, the entire shape of our season changed. People remember Taylor holding the football. I remember everything his presence had already demanded before that play. Against the Giants, an offense could never treat him like an ordinary outside linebacker. Protection had to lean toward him. A running back had to know whether he was rushing, waiting, or following the play from behind. He had speed, but speed was only the beginning. His real power was the uncertainty he created. He changed the geometry of the field before he touched anyone. That was Lawrence Taylor. He made 11 players account for one man. The Giants took possession at their own 43-yard line. Matt Barr later kicked a 42-yard field goal as time expired. New York won 15-13. We had been close to playing for a third consecutive championship. Then the season belonged to somebody else. What do you do with a memory like that? For years, people have tried to make one play larger than an entire career. I do not believe one mistake erases the championships, the yards, or the work that came before it. But I will not pretend the play disappeared. Football does not offer that kind of mercy. It records the result, then leaves the player to decide what the result means. Taylor corrected my illusion of control. I had believed experience could prepare me for every ending. I had been through Super Bowls, close games, and difficult fourth quarters. None of that protected us from one loose football and one defender alert enough to secure it. There is no honest way to remember that moment without giving Howard credit and Taylor respect. Howard created the opportunity. Taylor recognized it. Great defenders do that. They arrive when a mistake is still becoming a mistake. Lawrence belongs at number 2 because one moment connected his name to the hardest ending of my career. Yet the final man on this list stayed with me differently. Taylor owned one January play. Sam Mills occupied years. Lawrence Taylor gave me one January play. Sam Mills gave me a pattern I could never ignore. September 10th, 1990, the Louisiana Superdome felt loud, the kind of place where every sound seemed to fall straight onto the field. We were the defending champions, and everyone expected us to look like champions. New Orleans had other plans. I carried the ball 12 times that night. I gained 23 yards. We won 13-12, so the record book gave us the result. Still, when I walked away, the score did not tell the whole story. Every lane seemed to narrow before I could settle into it. And, somewhere near the center of that defense was Sam Mills, quiet, balanced, already moving toward the answer. That was the thing about Sam. He did not need to announce himself. Some linebackers made you feel their presence after the play. Sam made you feel his presence before it. I would look at the front, study the space, and think I understood where the run should go. Then the ball would come to me, and he would be waiting near the place I had chosen. How do you prepare for a man who seems to finish reading the sentence before you finish speaking it? To me, Sam seemed to watch everything, the guards, the backfield, the first small turn of a shoulder. He played with patience, then closed the space without wasting a step. Against him, hesitation was expensive. Confidence could be expensive too, because the moment I trusted the picture too completely, he had a way of changing it. Years later, when I was asked which linebackers I hated facing most, I named that Saints group: Vaughan Johnson, Sam Mills, Rickey Jackson, Pat Swilling. I said those 4 men had my number because every yard and every inch had to be earned. But when I tried to explain the physical price, both memories I shared were about Sam in consecutive seasons. I do not need to dress those memories up. It is enough to say that the games followed me home. That is why he is here at number 1. It was never about one famous collision or one perfect highlight. It was the repetition, the same calm eyes, the same disciplined angle, the same feeling that my first idea belonged to him before it belonged to me. He forced me to run with doubt beside me, and a running back cannot hide from doubt. He has to carry it, make a decision, and keep moving. When I think about the toughest opponents now, I think less about fear and more about respect. The great ones take something from you, then leave something useful behind. Sam took away easy yards. He left me with patience, humility, and a deeper understanding of what every inch truly cost. Taylor gave me a moment I could never forget. Sam Mills gave me a lesson I carried into every game that followed. When the noise is gone, football becomes a quieter game. The scores remain in old books, the trophies stay behind glass, but the men you face return when no one is asking for a story. Vaughan Johnson taught me what an inside yard could cost. Pat Swilling showed me how speed could steal time. Rickey Jackson made the edge feel smaller than it looked. Lawrence Taylor left me with one January moment that never faded. Sam Mills reminded me year after year that preparation means little without humility. I once believed the game measured a man by what he gained. Yards, victories, championships. Age changes that arithmetic. Part of us is also measured by what others force us to overcome. Those 5 men never stood beside me when the photographs were taken. They stood across from me, making every step harder and every lesson more honest. So when I look back, I do not see a list of enemies. I see 5 mirrors, each showing me something talent alone could never teach. Records remember what we accomplished. The men across the line remember who we had to become.